Okay. Hey everybody, thank y'all for showing up. We're live now. I'm sorry about being a few minutes late. My original guest that I had scheduled for us for tonight. Oops, I thought I turned that audio off. I'm sorry, y'all. But my original guest that I had for tonight, he had to reschedule until next Friday, so we will have him on next Friday. That's Scott Carpenter. He'll be on next Friday's show. So I just want to thank each and every one of you that showed up for the live chat tonight. And for the show, again, I have Mike from Abnormal Investigations joining me tonight, and we will be discussing the Girl Scout murders. Any of you who are not familiar, did Mike's interview a couple of weeks ago on the channel, and I'll be going on his show also as a guest. But we did a part one and part two on the show that I did with him. So y'all just make sure y'all tune in and check out both those episodes. It was very interesting. We talked about um, unknown canine murders or killings. So tonight we're going to be discussing the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. And was that in 1977, Mike?
Yep, 1977. I
Okay.
was a year
So
old.
can you let everybody know? Well, let me just greet everybody first, real quick, before we get into it. I just want to greet everybody in the chat. We have Don Orwig. Thank you for showing up tonight. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Barb. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate that so much. Barb, if you could, the link that I shared over in the group chat, can you share that in your group also? Because I'm not sure if I got the chance to share it over there or not. If you're still in there, Barb. Addie Overbay, thank you for showing up tonight. Hey, Sheila Claxton, how you doing? Emmy Tong, thank you for showing up tonight. So, without further ado, y'all, we're gonna get this thing going. Rethink Inc. Thank you for showing up tonight too. So tonight, I know on one of the last shows I was supposed to also discuss. We were also supposed to do Q&A. We've been going on for a while, and I don't think we ever really just got around to it. Matthew Osborne, thank you for showing up tonight. I appreciate you. Orgasmatron, thank you. I'm glad you made it tonight. Y'all make sure y'all go and share this live tonight. Y'all make sure y'all go share it in other groups. Dark Woods, thank you for showing up tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you. Y'all share this in y'all's groups because I didn't get a chance. I kind of did like a last minute save, but Mike's never just like a regular guest. Like he's just not like a last minute save. So you get a treat every time you got Mike on the show. So please, y'all share this in your groups. And also, we're going to go ahead and get started. He's going to talk about the Girl Scouts, and we're going to go right into that. Mike's got a lot of shows on his channel, and if y'all are not subscribed to his channel is Abnormal Investigations on YouTube, and he covers a lot of the animal and canine attacks, a lot of the cover ups and stuff like that. He goes in depth covering a lot of those cases. JoJo, thank you for showing up tonight. So without further ado, we're going to get started since we're already getting started late. But Mike, could you basically go into the Girl Scout killings and let everybody know, like basically go into that case and share that with everybody here?
1977. Uh, some girls had left Tulsa, Oklahoma, to go to Camp Scott, which was going to be their Girl Scouts. They were gonna be there for a week. It was whoever sold a lot of cookies. They all got picked to be able to go. Excuse me. Whenever they arrived, or before they arrived, actually, they found a note that was in the donut box, and the note said, "I am on a mission to kill 3 girls," or "we are." It said "we are," and the main person there, it was over the Girl Scout camp. They said it had to be a hoax. The girls showed up, and that night they had a large thunderstorms in the area. A lot of things that would be scary to young girls. You had adult counselors that were there that did not stay with the little girls in their tents. They stayed in their own tent. A lot of things happened that night that made me question if possibly some of the staff wasn't in on the deaths of these little girls. I feel like there was a large cult maybe set up that had happened with a possible creature, according to the OSBI paperwork. They spoke of a shapeshifter, which would later be the guy that they would end up arresting that would be prosecuted. And they blamed it on a single individual. And there's too much evidence, in my opinion, to be a single person or a single creature. There was too many different too many different aspects of the case: the fingerprints, physical aspects, footprints on the poles, different sizes in the cave, where they said they found a lot of the articles, and even a deputy, one of the sheriff's own deputies, in court that day said he saw some of the evidence in the sheriff's drawer 2 years prior to being planted in the cave, which was a big reason for Mr. Hart to have been found not guilty. He was actually found not guilty.
What kind of footprints were found?
at the uh, at the initial crime scene at the tent, the girls had bled so much inside of the tent that the floor and walls were covered in blood. Uh, Somebody had stepped in the blood and then had stepped outside of the tent and left a trail of blood to where the bodies would later be discovered. The footprint they found was a size 8, which was way smaller than what Hart wore, which they knew then it wasn't him. A fingerprint was later found on one of the bodies, and they then later said, well, the fingerprint was one of our investigators that accidentally touched the body. But then they come back even later and they say, well, the footprint was one of our investigators too. But there was something that happened in the investigation that I caught that told me there was a big cover up. The uh, the footprint that was found outside of the tent that they said was one of their officers was
Uh huh.
also the same footprint they found in the cave. So if you say it's your officer, then you have to say your officer, for some reason, has been at every location that links the crime to the girls. So there was a big mistake made there.
Oh wow. What can you tell us all the details of everything that was going on? Like based on what's been reported leading up to the Girl Scout murders. Just go in depth, like because most people here may not know exactly what was happening, what was going on with that. Was it just like a regular Girl Scout camp out? What was going on?
They'd arrived that night. Everything was normal except for the fact that, in the donut box, they had found the letter that said, we are on a mission to kill 3 girls. And the thing is, that night, there was a counselor there, and this is only opinionated. I'm not blaming her because I don't have evidence to blame her, but in my opinion, she would have been a suspect to me. Carla Wilhite, she was in charge of placing all the kids inside of their tents. For some particular reason that night, those 3 little girls were placed in a tent the furthest away from the counselor, furthest away from the kids. It was blocked by the showers. There was only 3 in that tent. There was 4 children in the other tent. So some reason they were labeled 3 girls in that tent, the furthest away, blocked by the showers, with a note saying, we're on a mission to kill 3 girls. And the 3 little girls that were murdered that night were also the 3 youngest girls at camp, 8, 9, and 10 years old.
Who do you think? I mean, so are those cases? Is that case basically to this day still left unsolved?
Yeah, the case is it is left open. They
Do you think?
it's weird. The OSBI said that the case that they believe 100% that they found the murderer of the murderer, but they left the case open. And the reason they do that is because they don't want FOIA's, files, stuff like that. But I'll tell you this much: the night the little girls were murdered, counselors, along with Will Height said she heard guttural noises coming from the woods. So she went out to investigate these noises. In her initial report, she said it sounded like a frog or a bullhorn, but she said it was not a human sound. Okay. She said it terrorized her. She was afraid. She was scared. So she goes back to her tent and she still hears the noise, right? After
Mm-hmm.
hearing it outside, after hearing the noise in her tent, still hearing this creature, this unhuman noise, she lays down and goes to sleep. The counselors in the other tent, they reported hearing a little girl yell for her mommy. They never investigated. Other counselors saw a dim light out in the woods, and they were shining their light on this light, and they said every time they would shine their light on this light, the light would go out, and then the light would reappear. They would shine their light back on the light, it would go back out, and the light was headed toward the tent that the little girls were found in. Not one time during all of this going on, little girl yelling for her mommy, seeing the light in the woods, hearing something in the woods that you think is not human,
Mm-hmm.
and they're able to just lay down and go to sleep. And these little girls, Bettina, they were beyond mutilated.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
How were I mean, I don't know, like if I guess if you can kind of describe so when you say beyond mutilated, does the report give what time everybody pretty much laid down and got in their tents for the night, and at what point the little girls were found mutilated, and was there not any screaming or anything like that going on where nobody heard anything other than one girl calling for her mother?
They heard the little girl calling for her mother. The guttural noises that she said that she didn't feel was human. I went back and kind of dug deeper into it, and my thoughts are, if there's any children in the room, you're not going to want your children in the room. Uh, my thoughts are the guttural noises
So
that
if
they
y'all got
heard.
kids in the room, then please send your kids out of the room now for this part of the show. Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead, Mike.
I think the guttural noises weren't the creature. I think the guttural noises were the sounds of the little girl being choked to death. Because one of the little girls that they found, she had a cord wrapped around her throat, and it was used to lead her to the woods where she would later be duct taped to a tree, sexually assaulted, and then murdered. Uh, the other little girl that was found inside of the tent, her body was so twisted up, she looked like a pretzel. Something had took her and twisted her body up so bad that it had shoved her in the bottom of this sleeping bag. And there was enough room in the bottom, they said, that you could have put something else. She was so twisted up into a ball. The other little girl, uh, they said she actually was laying in the fetal position and looked quite calm, except for she had blunt force trauma to her head. The sheriff Weaver at the time said that they'd found a murder weapon, and they said that a carpenter's hammer and a crowbar was used. And the reason they had brought this up is you could see the outline of the weapons in the children's heads that was used on them. Uh, Later on, the OSBI came out and said they didn't know what the sheriff was talking about, that there was no murder weapons found. So there was a lot of miscommunication, definitely.
Well, when I want, so the little girl that was twisted up like a pretzel in the sleeping bag. What I find strange about that, like when you say like twisted up, like you're saying literally.
They said she looked like a pretzel. Uh, 23 seasoned officers, investigators, highway patrolmen, local police, 23 of them quit their job after seeing this. Several of them took their own life. That's how bad this scene was.
Mm, how did they explain that? I mean, this is so strange. I never did get to hear this episode on the show before. I've listened to so many, and I never actually got to listen to this one. But how did they even begin to even try to explain that? And then after you answer that, I'm gonna ask you another question in regards to that. But did they even try to explain that, or what was that? What did they say?
Nothing. They tried to keep it under wraps. They didn't even tell the family that there was a murder at the camp. They loaded all the children on the buses that morning and sent them straight to Tulsa, Oklahoma. None of the parents even knew what had happened. All they knew is that their children were being delivered back uh, to them. That there had been an emergency that had happened at the camp, but they didn't know what kind of emergency.
So, how far, and I'll go back to the little girl in just a second, but how far away were the camp leaders' tents away from the little girl's tents? Were they pretty far off?
A little over 100 yards, it looked like on the map. Yeah, and they were also
So,
separated by the showers. Also,
were all three of the little girls all in the same tent?
yes, and all
So,
the other tents had 4 children in them, except for the 3 youngest in the tent that was killed with the letter saying we're on a mission to kill 3 little girls. That was the only tent that had 3 in it.
the crazy part about it to me is that just listening to this right now is there were three little girls in the one tent. And based on the fact that there were three girls in the tent, what I find strange is the fact that, of course, while one of them is being taken out or abducted out of the tent, I'm sure she's going to be making some kind of a fuss or a struggle or screaming or something where the other two girls would have heard this, which makes me kind of believe that there's probably possibly more than one person involved in this. How would one person take one little girl out of the tent without waking her up or without waking the other girls up to have an opportunity to scream to be heard by the rest of the people if they weren't that far away?
The OSBI and the sheriff department, they this was the report of what they believe happened. I disagree, but they say that Jean Leroy Hart showed up at the tent that night, entered from the back of the tent, bludgeoned 2 of the young girls to death in their sleep, and then wrapped a cord around the other girl's throat, and then led her out into the woods where she would finally be sexually assaulted. Another thing about that is well, they tried to blame it on Jean Leroy Hart, and there was 2 things I found in the investigation I thought was pretty interesting. Was Mr. Hart had they now I don't even know if he done this, but they said he raped 2 girls over by Tulsa, Oklahoma. He pled guilty to the charges, but if you read the case, there's not a whole lot there that really incriminates him. The girls said they were tied up. There were no burn marks on their wrists. They done rape kits on them. There was no proof of rape, but he pleaded out of that, which I think he got like 305 years in prison. But he, raping and these little children. I went back and read the autopsy. I was able to get a hold of the autopsy, some of it. I spoke to some officers, and they were not. There was no sexual intercourse. They were only sexually mutilated, was the words used, and they had sticks in their orifices when they found them, and were laid out like an offering. I mean, it goes really deep. It's very dark.
This is very disturbing, and Rethink Inc. said a sacrifice makes horrible sense. Ritualistic sex magic. And I've heard some cases where talked to a few people behind the scenes where they were actually saying that on a lot of, and I don't know if this has anything to do with cryptids at all, but a lot of these cases where they're going out on these campouts and stuff like that, or investigations, a lot of investigators or researchers will go out into the woods and they will see different runes and stuff like that out there, different, you know, sites where that look like sacrifices or different animals dead or whatever around different pentagrams, stuff like that that's being found out in the woods. But I guess stuff like this doesn't get reported that often, but it just makes you wonder because where they were camping out, was this a state or national park?
It would be in I believe it was a state park. It was owned by the Magic Empire out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. You notice it's
Miss,
Magic Empire.
Mr. D. Knuckles said was blood missing from the children.
Yeah, the children were so uh, assaulted on their heads that the blood had covered so much of the inside of the tent that they actually removed the floor and flew the floor out to be examined. It was so soaked in blood. So yeah, they lost a large amount of blood inside of the tent.
I just don't even know what to say about this. This is crazy. So the little girl that was twisted up like a pretzel in the sleeping bag, to me, I don't think that that's anything possible that any human being would be able to do um, in a situation like that. Um, what are your thoughts on that situation as far as the little girl being twisted up like that?
I spoke with a guy that is he's a doctor, and he says the amount of force it would have took for
Hold on.
somebody to
His, can you start over, Mike? It glitched out for a second.
sure the a doctor had mentioned that the amount of force that it would take to physically be able to alter the body in the fashion that she was altered, no one person could do that. They had a tent pole inside of the tent that they said had fingerprints on it where it had been grabbed and snapped. They said there was no human would have been able to do that. Jean Leroy Hart was supposed to be running with a shaman that was practicing dark magic, and he had supposedly taught Jean Leroy Hart how to shapeshift. He was a skinwalker. Now, the OSBI actually did document that they were chasing him on several occasions, and he would run behind a tree or a bush, and an owl would fly away, he would be gone, or a dog would appear, and he would be gone. They seen shadows in the woods a lot that they were unable to locate. Uh, Jean Leroy Hart uh, even told them during one arrest, he said, I watched you guys from above and from below. I was always around. And he was telling the jailer at the time, he's like, I can escape anytime I want to. I can shapeshift and be out of here. And the jailer was telling Mr. Pratt, which was an undercover OSBI agent that actually ended up finding Gene Leroy Hart. And the jailer's telling Pratt, he said, this Gene Leroy keeps telling me he's going to shapeshift and he's going to break out of jail. Later on, he did break out of jail, and still to this day, they will not release how he done it. It is top secret. It has not been released.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they won't release it.
And it lets you know stuff like that kind of lets you know that the cover up is even more in depth and more nefarious than we even know. And it makes me think back to a lot of the stuff that's going on with the missing 411 cases, just the fact that the law enforcement in this case, like, they covered up, and I guess that they probably wouldn't release it because it probably sounds so incredulous that they know that nobody would believe it anyway. They just don't want that information out there for people to realize that satanic rituals were done in this blood magic. I know a lot of the times it's, yeah, I don't know if you've heard of adrenochrome before, but it's been brought up in a lot of different ritualistic sex magic, secret societies, Satanism, and witchcraft cases where they have to go in and get the blood of the pure, the young, and you have to get them at their most terrified state. And I don't know, they get power off of that fear. Have you heard of that, Mike?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it goes way up to the top, higher than we'll talk about on the channel. We don't want to get your channel shut down. Yeah, all I'm going to say is it goes to the top.
And it just makes me think too, like this cover up like this, it just makes me think when it comes to missing 411, on a lot of those cases, dogs, or, I guess like the dogs they bring in, the search dogs, a lot of times they refuse to go beyond a certain point, or a lot of times kids or adults also are like missing without their one of their shoes or without clothes on at all, or and it's sometimes like in freezing temperatures, or in rocky terrain, or terrain that nobody in their right mind would like go across without having any of these things on. Sometimes when these people are found, they're found and they are dry, or they're not freezing. They should have been dealing with hypothermia. But then there's cases where some of the kids who were found after the fact that were still alive were either kind of discombobulated or like in a trance-like state. But when they were able to get some information out of them, they would tell them things like, a bear or a big wolf took care of me, or it had me and it fed me. And so you only hear a few of those cases like that. But even like in the Dennis Martin case on the missing 411, Dennis Martin was a boy who went missing. He was playing hide and seek, I think, with some other kids. And he went behind a bush, and his father standing off in the distance. The other kids came out, after a while, but his son Dennis never did come right out from behind that bush. He should have seen his son come out on either side of it, or walking away from it, or walking towards him, but he never came out from behind it. So the father went over there after a few minutes to go look for his son, and when he got over there, he was nowhere to be found. And his body has still not been found to this day. But there were some hikers or joggers that were there in that park at the same time that Dennis Martin went missing. Said that they actually saw um, something large, hairy, and brown carrying a little child over the shoulders. So when you look into stuff like that, it's just kind of strange. I know David Paulides, he doesn't, I don't think I outrightly come out and say that he, believes that some of this has got to do with Bigfoot and Dogman, but I do know that he has come and spoken at some of these cryptic conferences as far as
Barb
missing
Warren,
411.
she brought up a good question a while ago. She said, was the counselors drunk or under uh, you know drugs or something like that? And I thought that at first, and I went back and after I reviewed it, one of the things that made me think that the counselor, especially Carla Wilhite, was possibly involved in these murders. There was a huge rumor going around town at that time that she was dating Jean Leroy Hart. So if you go and you're asleep and you hear this scary noise and you lay down and go to sleep, that's not natural. That's not what you're going to do if you're afraid. But if you know who's making that scary noise, you're not going to be afraid to go to sleep, are you?
No. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely not. No, that's crazy. And it's terrifying too, because if you still look back, and I'm not trying to tie this in, but this is in a state park, and then it's still a mysterious unsolved case. And in a lot of these cases where missing children or people who are wound up or found dead, a lot of the time there's cover ups with that. The media never finds out about it, or they hear part of the story. There's an investigation or a search party out looking for these people, but they never follow up on it and tell people the end result of it. They don't tell people that people have been found out hundreds of miles away, up like mountain ranges where there's no way for a 2 or 3 year old child or toddler to be able to be found up that high, or across a river. And it's so when you look at all this, and then you look at the fact, like I just mentioned, David Paulides was missing 411. One of the things he said is that when he tried to get the state and national parks to, what is the Freedom of Information Act, a FOIA, to give up the numbers of people who've gone missing or wound up dead in their parks. They refused to give it, and they said that they did not keep up with those numbers. And I highly disagree with that, and I don't believe that. I feel like they do, but they don't want it to come out, and almost makes me wonder if the state and national parks are not breeding grounds or sacrificial ground this, and the state and national parks, along with police and law enforcement, are not all in it on this together. And I can't say that for sure. It's just a theory that I'm throwing out there. But at the highest levels, nobody wants to make them cooperate, because to me, the state and national parks should be forced to do so by the FBI to give up those numbers.
I looked at something else I thought was kind of disturbing too. I think you'll find it pretty interesting. In the Girl Scouts, I was reading back a long time ago. The bonfires used to be called bone fires, and the circle that these girls have these campfires in, the campfire is called the magic circle.
Really?
I thought
You
it was interesting.
okay? Can you say that? Repeat that one more time, Mike, for anybody who didn't hear that.
The bonfires, when it first originated, were called bone fires, and the circle that they sit at where they have their fire is called the magic circle.
You know what? And it makes, I know I'm always trying to tie stuff together, but I look at all the bigger picture. But that right there alone, the bone fire, the circle, all that kind of stuff, it just kind of makes me think back to the Bible and Moloch. When people were sacrificing their children to Moloch, they were throwing their bodies in the fire.
And it's also owned by the Magic Empire, which owns a lot of Girl Scout uh, camps, owns a lot of them. And then if you look in Oklahoma out at what they call the parallel forest, in the middle of it, it has a bonfire area that's exactly like it where sacrifices have took place.
Really?
Yeah.
So basically, it's almost like it's so. How is this? How are these people like this? How are they not being investigated? And this goes back to what
Well,
I was saying before. The law enforcement. I can't say this because I don't want to say it because I really don't want to, like I said, have to deal with law enforcement or my channel getting shut down or anything like that. But it's very creepy. It's very disturbing, and a lot of people don't realize that if you look at like the Illuminati and secret societies and stuff like that, at the highest levels, there's doctors, there's lawyers, there's high level judges and military officials that are involved in this.
I'll put it to you like this without shutting your channel down, and everybody can draw their own conclusions. I investigated the Magic Empire. The Magic Empire is owned and supported by the Freemasons.
Hmm. Witchcraft. Witchcraft, sorcery, human sacrifice. And I'm not talking about, for those of you who are listening right now, like Tamara said, sickness are everywhere. And I'm not talking about like the lowest level. We're talking about like the highest level, like Scottish Rite, 32nd, 33rd degree, and beyond that. A lot of rituals are done. So secret societies, they sworn oaths of secrecy. And I only know like a few. I don't know very much, but I only know a few, and I'm not gonna say it here. But some of the things that happen within this is so nefarious, so disturbing. I just it's mind-boggling and it's crazy. And I think, to be honest with you, with that knowledge in mind, it kind of makes me think that, yeah, they don't have any choice. The park officials know not to say anything about this. They know not to say anything. If law enforcement or higher ups are involved, they know if they want to keep their jobs or to keep their lives intact, they know not to say anything about it. Otherwise, why would it be nationwide that these things are happening? And what better place to be able to carry out these rituals, set fires, um, in darkness at that, because they tell you like, and that's why a lot of times, like when the secret societies and different stuff like that are rituals and stuff, where it always deals with the owl as their symbol, because as they say in the Illuminati, the owl sees things at night. The owl is wise. The owl is mysterious. And if you look at that movie, what was that one movie that came out a few years ago? The Fourth Kind. People who were having, and they said that movie was based on a true story, and that had to do with alien abduction. But all the people who were being counseled, or like they were going to see this particular psychiatrist, they were telling her that what they were seeing come to their window at night was an owl. But then, as they were under hypnosis, they would say, "No, it's not an owl. It's something else. It's something more nefarious, something more sinister." And then they would get terrified, and a lot of the times she would have to bring them out of that hypnotic state that they were in. But if you look at it and you think how the owl is symbolic, how the owl sees things at night, wisdom, the owl is wise. And that is what these secret societies are looking for: secret knowledge, knowledge that the average person and everybody else does not have. And I think that they call us the golem. I
Yeah.
think they call us the
Look, look,
golem.
look at look at the old Tootsie Pop. It had an owl, on it, and the Indian shooting a star.
A shooting star.
Yeah, it had an Indian shooting a star with his bow. He was shooting an actual star.
And what y'all, do you realize how much symbolism is in that?
Right.
The owl, the secrecy, and then the Tootsie Pop that's appealing to kids. So the owl's candy, then the sucking the candy, uh, lollipop, and then you got that. And then if you look and you take that a step deeper, then you go deeper into it and you find out, okay, the Indian like shooting at a shooting star. A lot of people don't realize that shooting stars are also symbolic of fallen angels, and that's what a lot of these secret societies worship. And I'm kind of nervous right now, even talking about it, because like sometimes when you cover certain things on your shows and stuff like that, you have to deal with a lot of paranormal or other crazy stuff that happens, like just based on talking about stuff like this. So y'all just be careful, any of you who are researchers that are watching this show right now,
And I think
be
Marquetta's got it
careful.
right.
Like when
She just said you have to be careful of the bonfires.
she said John Ramirez says that, saying that she said she remember the John Ramirez. I can't talk. John Ramirez saying that bonfires is a part of witchcraft. John Ramirez, he was a serial killer. I can't remember what state that was. I think it might have been California, but I remember that. But I didn't know he said that bonfires is a part of witchcraft. But you just brought that up a few minutes ago about the magic circle.
Yeah, and then look at people talk about people getting paid off. Look at the little boy from Oklahoma, James McNeilis. That's a weird case. That's a very strange case. I actually spoke to his father.
You spoke to his father.
Yeah, whenever they whenever they first released his death, I was following the story, and I'm kind of one of those hard-headed investigators. I look at the little things, and I noticed that whenever they released his the death, I noticed that it wasn't a location; it was a GPS coordinate. From me working, I know that that is not a common thing to do. So I know game wardens do it a lot because they work in the woods. They don't work by roads or freeways or anything like that. So a lot of theirs is GPS. But there was no reason for that young man to be GPS. So I plugged in the numbers, being the nosy person I am, and it took me to a pond. And I thought, why is this taking me to a pond? And it kept taking me to a
Hmm.
pond. Well, later on, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to call his dad. I'm just going to pick the phone up. I'm going to call his dad. So I called his father. And just losing your son, I did not expect him to give me the information he gave me that day. He was very, very open, very. He didn't even seem disturbed, Bettina. Uh, he spoke to me like he would be another investigator. And I'm talking,
Hmm.
this is a day after his son died. And I asked him, I said, was your son found in the backyard or at a pond? Because the police and everybody said his son was in the backyard. And he said, no,
Right.
no, no, no. My son was at the pond,
Uh
but
huh.
they moved him to the backyard. And I said,
Really?
why did? Yeah, I said, why did they do that? He said,
Oh
well,
wow.
and if you have kids in the room again, this is not kid friendly at all. Uh,
Yes.
he said, my son's head was removed, his throat was missing, part of his side, stomach, ribs, and other parts of his body were missing that were never found. And they moved him to the backyard. And then I later received a phone call from some first responders that were at the scene, ambulance drivers, and they said we weren't allowed to go back there, and that's very uncommon. They wasn't even allowed to go back there until the body was placed there. So then I spoke to the neighbor, which lives side by side, and she said we was having a birthday party on the outside porch that day. We never heard a little boy scream, never heard a dog attack. The pound across the street goes crazy if anything happens. It was quiet that night. So whatever got him fast, probably the throat. But then I dug deeper, you know me. I couldn't quit, so I kept digging, and I found out the family was involved in witchcraft.
Mm.
The day the little boy was murdered was on the it was on the it was a moon. I can't remember the exact moon, the wolf moon or something like that, at the exact time. And the family was a poor family. They you could tell they didn't have a lot of money. You know, it was an old house. They didn't have a car. Uh, their house was it was an old home, and I kept following the case after it all happened and everything. And now they're living in a really nice house. They have a brand new car, and they posted on Facebook, "We are now living our dream."
It didn't seem like they were grieving at all.
Now,
When you talked to the father, did he originally seem or sound like at all that he was grieving or puzzled by what had happened, or he didn't sound like
not
he
a,
was sad or
not at all. He went into the grim details of his son, and several occasions he told me, "Make sure that you put out our GoFundMe on your page. We need the money. Please put out the GoFundMe link."
that is ridiculous. And oh my God, like this. So I don't even know what to say about this. This is so disturbing because it's like, what do you do in a situation like that? Because they were living high off the hog, like they never really had to worry about it. And you said that they were living kind of poor before this, they were
Yeah,
struggling.
yeah, yeah.
That's
And
very disturbing.
there was the black cars at the house. The neighbor told me the black helicopters one night. She said the black helicopters were shooting out of the doors, and she called the sheriff department and said, "There's a helicopter flying in the field behind us, and they're shooting. We're concerned about our kids." And the sheriff department said, "Oh, no, 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 it's nothing to worry about. It's the military live fire drills. They've already contacted us. Everything's on the up and up." My thing is they were probably hunting down whatever done it.
You had cut out at the end. You said they were probably hunting what?
They was probably hunting whatever done it, because that lady I talked to, the neighbor, she said they've been calling 911 for 3 weeks, telling them there is something in the woods making weird noises, whistling at us, beating on neighbors' houses, and some of the dogs over at the pound have been gutted, and the police, they weren't interested.
I think it's because they know. They already know what it is. So they're not going to admit to it and they're not going to tell it because it's the same thing that goes on with a lot of these killings, a lot of these unknown canine attacks. Like I said, like I was talking to a friend of mine, Chris. He's in the chat right now. He's been on a couple of shows with me. I think about 3 or 4 shows. Chris Kramer's been on the shows with me, and we've talked about some of this stuff. And when you get dig deep into it, I had asked him at one point, like unknown canine thing. I found that strange because can they not tell you what type of canine? If it's a regular canine, if it's a dog, or if it's a wolf, or if it's coyote, or anything like that? And I believe Chris had told me, well, yeah, they can do that to the point where they can tell you by DNA. Any vet or any lab tech can tell you specifically what breed of dog. Like if you're trying to check what breed of dog that you have because you don't know because you bought it and you didn't get it from a reputable breeder, you just got a mutt, and they can tell you specifically what breed of dog. So yeah, they can actually tell you if it came from a wolf or a dog or a coyote. So in these unknown canine killings, then basically to me that's them almost halfway telling you right there. They're not going to say it's dog man related. They can't say that. They're still telling you without really telling you, but they know that most people are like, okay, well, it's just an unknown dog, it's an unknown wolf. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to say there's not some canine type breed out there that we've not discovered yet. I'm not going to say that because it's open to all type of possibilities. But what is strange is like in one of the cases you were telling me about, and I can't remember which one, but didn't you say like one of the people who were killed in one of these unknown canine attacks? Didn't she have 63 tooth mark impressions on her body?
Yeah, they said it looked like a shark bite.
And I googled it when I was on the show. Hold on. I googled it when I was on the show last time, and when I googled it when I was on the show last time, what I found interesting was the fact that some people were saying, "Well, maybe it was a bear." Well, it couldn't be a bear because when we looked it up, didn't bears only have like they had 43 teeth?
Yeah, none of them even had close. And I have an answer for you too
Absolutely.
that you're looking for. I think will help you. I spoke to a crime lab because I was
Uh-huh.
interested in the unknown canine. Again, I was poking my nose into stuff, and I asked them. I said, "What does it mean?" And she said, to break it down to layman's, I guess,
Uh-huh.
is when you look at the blood, you can say this is a German Shepherd, this is a Pomeranian, this is a a Doberman. But whenever they're saying unknown canine, she said actually what they're saying is it is a canine DNA of an unknown origin, which means there is not a name of that canine on record. It's not a Doberman, it's not a German Shepherd, it's not a Rottweiler, a Great Dane. We know it's canine, but we don't know what kind of canine. So she said, when they say unknown canine, she said they really should be saying unknown canine origin because that's actually what they're saying.
Really?
Yeah. And that's from the crime lab.
Okay.
I thought
And
you'd like that.
that is crazy. Um, so when she said unknown canine origin, would that be the same thing as undiscovered, unclassified canine species?
Yes.
I guess like that's not been identified or labeled.
Or at least not in their data banks.
But I really believe that they do have it in their databanks and they know exactly what it is, but they know that it's unknown to the public. They have, I seriously believe they have the DNA for Bigfoot and Dogman because there have been ones that have been taken in and confiscated by these secret government agencies, whoever they are. They've come in and taken these bodies away, so there's no way that they haven't taken in the DNA for those. And like I always say on a lot of the shows that I do, these people think that they bring in a body, then it's going to prove it. No, it's not going to prove it. You're going to be taken to jail for killing an animal, or you're going to be fined, or you're going to be threatened um, within an inch of your life, threatened to lose your job. They're going to remove money from your bank account. They're going to wipe your phone and take everything out of it. And they're going to tell you saw a bear. They're going to tell you that you saw something that you know that you didn't see. And there's been plenty of cases of that happened. So they have the DNA for these things.
Just like whenever I was at work and I would run a tag on somebody, if you're a private investigator or somebody of importance, it'll come back and it'll flag on my system. And what it means is I'm not allowed to release that to the public. And I have to sometimes contact the supervisor above me. And a lot of times they'll say, go ahead and let that car go. We'll deal with it. So I'm sure it's the same way in the data banks. It's probably all flagged, as do not release
Hmm.
this information or
Hmm.
private information.
Now, Chris Kramer said, I don't understand one thing. Either this entity was harassing the family for weeks, apparently, or did they intentionally summon it, as you're suggesting, Mike?
I don't know if they would have summoned it because from talking to people that live around there, I talked to a lot of people and they were having trouble with it weeks before the little boy was killed. So maybe they knew it was there and they knew the moon was coming. So maybe it was an offering to it. Maybe. I don't know. That's a lot of speculation. I just know that the boy was killed on that exact moon, day, time, everything. And I can speak about the father because I spoke with him, and he just didn't fit the profile of somebody just lost a child. Because the last thing I would want to do is talk to a stranger and tell him my kid got his head removed and parts of him were eaten, and that's not something you're going to talk about. I mean, my opinion, you're not
Oh,
going to talk
absolutely
about
not. You're not. Mr. D. Knuckles said Melba Ketchum got three dogman samples in the Bigfoot DNA study. So there is a map. Mr. D. Knuckle, I did actually chat with, um, I saw the picture too. I
it.
did actually chat with, I didn't talk to her on the phone, but I did actually chat with Melba Ketchum on Messenger, and I asked her a few questions, and she told me that based on her research studies, that let me see if I can pull that old message up. But while I'm looking that up, I wanted to ask you another thing. Y'all go ahead, Mike. Can you see the questions?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I can see it. What you put up, I can see what you put up.
Okay. Mike, what do you think? Like, as far as I think I wrote a question down. Do you think the counselors and park staff of the Oklahoma Girl Scout killings? Do you think the councils and park staff know about strange activity in state and national parks and have been silenced or have to be a part of this agenda and sworn to secrecy? Because don't they have to? Do they not have to sign non-disclosure agreements to work in those parks?
Yeah. And another thing too is whenever they have a murder or something happen in those parks, they're a closed entity, which means they don't have to share any of their investigation that they do with anybody. They keep those. They're all personal. It's federal. They don't have to share anything. So there's no outside investigators or sources that's going to know anything about what's going on inside. Another thing too is it's happened for so long they can't release it. There's too much liability. The amount of lawsuits, uh, people that's going to stop going there, walking, camping, they're going to lose billions of dollars because nobody's going to want to go, camp somewhere where your son might be jerked from behind a tree and ate. And if that gets out, it would cost the government too much money. It all boils down to liability and money. Money being the root of all evil. And they're not going to give their money up.
Absolutely. And, when it came down to Dr. Melba Ketchum, from what I'd heard like several times throughout the crypto community, like they tried to discredit her. And she was a scientist. Like she actually does DNA studies. And when she came out with the information about her findings with the Sasquatch and Dogman DNA, they discredited her and threatened her and laughed her out of the community. So she doesn't really do very. I don't know if she does any at all anymore. But at one point in time, I think maybe she was doing documentaries and getting on shows and stuff like that and allowing people to interview her. And I wanted to interview her back in 2021, and I pulled up those old messages that I brought up just to let y'all see that um, I did actually have a conversation with her. Um,
Another weird
hey,
thing too, if you think about it, we're going to discredit you, but we're also going to threaten you to stop. Why do you need to threaten somebody that's not telling the truth, right?
absolutely. And some people, I will be honest with you, some of the people that just completely end up disappearing, it makes me wonder sometimes, are they also, do they put them in like insane asylums and commit them and put them in a hospital behind closed doors or put them in jail somewhere? You just never hear about it again. So back in March 24th, 2021, I had contacted Melva Ketchum, and I basically said, "Good morning. I've heard a lot about you in the cryptid community. I respect your work and your research." And I asked her, basically about her research studies and the DNA evidence that she had pulled up. She said, let me go to it. She said she doesn't do interviews. I'm going to go straight to it. I'm trying to paraphrase what she said. She doesn't do interviews anymore, but she told me to ask my most pressing questions. I sent her pictures of evidence I had. I asked her that she had was her. I asked her were they Nephilim, and she said yes they were. And I said, "Is that do you say that based on your research?" She said one sample was hair. She said she took DNA samples, and that's what it was based on. She said one sample was hair and one saliva. I said, "What do you think Dogman is?" She said, "A human hybrid." I said, "Why do you believe that? Is it based on your research?" I said, "I'm just trying to figure them out. Why were they created, do you think? And do you feel like they always existed?" I said, "I believe they're Nephilim." And she said, "It's based on their DNA. Yes, they are Nephilim. You're very welcome as far as the friend request." And she said she wouldn't do an interview, but she went on to say, "I do not." Hold on. I said, "Wow, can we talk at some point? Not for an interview or anything, because I saw that you don't do public interviews anymore." She said, "I do, but not very often and very selective. My time is really limited, so it's difficult to work them in." But she said, "Ask me your most burning questions." So I asked her, "Are they supernatural creatures and how are they able to cloak and disappear? I've seen it happen. I'm just trying to make sense of it, but I do understand that you're busy and I appreciate your time texting. I won't keep hounding you. I'm just excited that you accepted my question." She said, "Yes, they are supernatural. There are two ways they cloak. One is by jumping dimensions, and the other is by changing their vibration or energy field." Um, and she said, "Next question." And I can't, let me see if she got to the next ones. So I said, think okay, so I think I missed it when she said next question, but then she went on to say there are many dimensions outside of our own. You could consider heaven another dimension. All matter is made up of atoms, physics, and they vibrate or move constantly. By changing the speed of this movement, you can leave this dimension. The energy field is different. It basically reflects or bends light. See an object. So she's saying this is how they cloak. Okay, and I asked her, why do Dogman and Bigfoot seem to hang around granite and limestone deposits? Just wondering if there's anything to that. She said, not sure that's the case. There are so many of them, they are everywhere. They do stay around a water source, though. But I asked her more questions about the DNA, and she said, I'm not totally finished with the research, so I can't talk about details yet. So she's still, in October 2021, she was still doing research. So I started messaging her in May of 2021, and I messaged her again in October of 2021, and she's still at that point doing the research. And I don't know if she's finished it since then, but based on her research study, she says they are Nephilim. They're part human hybrid, part animal, and part unknown. Now, somebody asked me a question once, and they said, "Well, how can y'all say it's Nephilim? Who's got a Nephilim like somewhere, like in a lab studying them?" Well, you don't know what type of DNA that they have. Some of the giants have actually dug up some of their remains, some of the DNA is still intact on some of their bones. So there's no telling what they have. And then if you take where into consideration where it's been said that some of the and people might everybody's entitled to their opinions, but I'm just throwing all theories out there because it's all up for speculation. But when you get dig real deep into it, some people say that aliens are really Nephilim or fallen angels. And when you get into that, then you look at all these different things. But DNA has been collected from these different beings, whether it be extraterrestrial or alien. Some scientists who were not Christian scientists have actually come, some of them have come to the conclusion that they are not extraterrestrial, but interdimensional. They can also, when they're in their ships and stuff, like appear and disappear at will. You've got to look at the fact that when people are abducted from their bedrooms at night, these people are not being taken through their front door, they're being taken through the ceiling. Are you aware of that, Mike?
Yeah, I've read some of those. Yeah, I
They're
I
being
kind of
taken
fall.
through the ceiling.
Yeah, I fall along the lines of aliens or demons. Satan was the great deceiver. Uh, Magicians make us see things that aren't there. We have to be, the mind is the battlefield, and that's where we have to
Oh,
be careful.
well, and then if you take into account, and we won't go into it, y'all, on this show, because I mean, but if unless y'all want to go into it, but a lot of the people who are abducted, a lot of the times they will come back, even like, and whether that movie, The Fourth Kind, was based on a true story or not. What I can say about that is that a lot of the people were talking about a smell that they were getting. It was disgusting. It was sulfur. Do know in a lot of cases where they're on that movie in real life, real abductees have actually talked about feeling like their bodies were being taken over. There's mediums or channelers who actually are able to allow these extraterrestrials to actually speak through them. Well, why would some other life form from some other planet, if it were not a spiritual being, be able to take over your body or to speak through you? That means, to me, that means it's spiritual. And y'all may, disagree with that. If you have other theories on it, feel free to speak your piece in the comments, and I'll put your comment up on the screen. But when you look at this kind of stuff, like even in that, like I said, the movie, if you learn and you research in secret societies, skull and bones, Illuminati, and all that kind of stuff, when you get into digging into it, they will tell you that a lot of times there's a lot of truth told in music and Hollywood movies and stuff like that, hidden in plain sight. They're basically putting it out there, a lot of symbolism and stuff like that, that is put into our subconscious mind. But when you get into this, when I brought up the movie before, The Fourth Kind, you got the whole symbolism, the people being abducted by aliens, but then they were like, no, it's not an alien, it's an owl. No, it's something else. Well, if you look at an owl has those big almond shaped eyes. So I believe it was shape shifting to these people. If this is real, it was shape shifting. And if it wasn't, It was still symbolic. Owls come out at night. They're wise. They see things at night when everybody else is asleep. That's what it is about secret societies. That's why the owl is their symbol. And I think Moloch was also the symbol of the owl in some cultures. So when you look into that and you remember Bohemian Grove back then, the owl was one of the things they were sacrificing children to.
And
So when you get, huh? Go ahead.
demon possession.
Yeah,
And
someone's brought that
I'm
up,
like
Mr.
you.
D.
I'm like you on that. I don't like talking about that in my house. I try to stay away from that myself. That's something I don't like.
Yeah, it's very scary, and I will leave it at that because I've had my own situation, scary stuff happening because of that. You have to be careful what you talk about. You got to go through and pray when you talk about certain stuff on these shows. But the reason I brought up a lot of this stuff for y'all right now was because I just wanted to make y'all aware that when we talk about cryptids and you talk about the supernatural and you talk about alien abduction and all this kind of stuff, it's all intertwined in some way. It's not all as separate as people might think. It's not by chance that a lot of people who have had dogman or Bigfoot sightings or encounters have also seen UFOs or have also been abducted by aliens or had nighttime visitations in their room. The same way that Bigfoot and Dogman can cloak and disappear at will, aliens and UFOs, the craft that they're in, they can also appear and disappear at will. They're also able to be clogged up at can't remember how many thousands of miles, 10, 20, 50,000 miles per hour. I can't remember. It's been too long ago that I was researching all this stuff about secret societies and all that back to like 2011. And if y'all get a chance, check out the Omega Conspiracy. Into that. But Dr. Jacques Vallée, I think he was one of the NASA scientists that was, if y'all seen that movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that guy, Jacques Vallée, the NASA scientist, made like a brief cameo in that movie, but he had a large part he had actually had a large part in directing that movie and telling them the different types of encounters. You got encounters the first kind, second, third, fourth, and fifth kind. I think fifth is the highest one, and I'm not sure what each one is. I think the first one is just like a UFO sighting. I'd have to look it up and see what each one specifically is because I don't know right now. But I will say that when it comes into that, there's a lot of things that come out that people don't realize. So when you look at these things, when you look at UFOs and aliens, especially UFOs in the skies, for those of you who've not had alien abductions or visitation from them at night, I'm about to pray over this after this show is over with because I've not had that, but there's other stuff that comes with all of this. So when you get into it, there was a guy, I think his name was John Todd, and John Todd has talked about this, and he was somebody back in the day. Something weird going on over there right now. It was, um,
As long as you don't have a little head looking over your shoulder from behind you.
I'm disturbed. I can't even think straight right now.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
like that stuff. I don't even mess with that stuff.
Let me hurry up and shut up because it's creeping me out. So basically, John Todd brought up one thing, and one thing that he said was that when the NASA scientists and stuff like that, a lot of people didn't realize that some of these people were involved with the occult. That you could actually go out into a field. You could actually go out into a field and actually call them up. You could conjure up or call up aliens or call up UFOs. You can actually, in some cases, like talk and ask them to do certain things actually ever out there watching. So weird. Okay, let me calm down. I'm serious. I swear to God, y'all, I'm not doing this for clicks and clickbait right now. I swear there's some weird stuff going on. I'm okay. I got goosebumps. Let me hurry. Let me speak expedite this. Don't go out there. Just understand, like there's no rational reason why that anybody should be able to call something up that's not a spirit. If it's something from another dimension, but it's not from another dimension, it's from right here. Um, that's all I'm gonna say about that. I'm gonna leave it alone. Okay, I can't. I gotta calm down. Oh Lord Jesus, that was scared me right now. It's just not right. It's um Bernard Fox said, I think the entire world is going through a great unveiling now since 2012. Slowly, like a boiling frog, governments don't care. Supernatural occurrences picking up. Trust no one. Time is upon us. Um, any of y'all out there in the comments, are y'all familiar with Bill Schneider? Phil Schneider? And y'all, I'm sure some of y'all out there familiar with Phil Schneider. If you are, then y'all know he was out there on Area 51, and he was talking about the deep underground military. I'm not gonna go into it. Apparently, I shouldn't be talking about some of this stuff right now based on what's happening over there. But if y'all know, then y'all can discuss that. Tennessee, Kentucky, Bigfoot. Hello, thank you for joining us. So, what I will say is that when y'all look into this stuff, it's not by chance, and I want to bring it because it's very important. It's not by chance that some of you who've had sightings or encounters with Bigfoot or Dogman have also had UFO or alien sightings, experiences, abductions, and other things that I will not discuss right now because some I don't want to deal with it tonight. And you have to understand, even when it comes down to the orbs and stuff like that, it's not by chance you see orbs when you see Bigfoot and Dogman. Aliens and UFOs, those beings are also able to put orbs and stuff. Okay, that's enough. Um, Anybody out there, y'all got anything y'all want to say? I'm just gonna tell y'all right now, like, you talk about some of the stuff, even when it comes to cryptids, enough, and you bring that stuff up enough too. Those things can also, you know, knock on wood. God, don't let it happen. I don't want to deal with that. But you can also have stuff like that manifesting in your home too, and I guess they call that the ethereal form. Yep, Chris Kramer said. Dr. Stephen Greer says same thing about calling UFOs in. You can call them in. It's been times like I've actually seen them. I've had a UFO sighting before or encounter like up very high up in the sky, and let me rephrase that. I've seen them high up in the sky, but I also had one when I was 14. It came down really low, like so low above the neighbor's house across the street from where my parents lived at the time that if I were to actually have stood up on top of their house, I could have literally threw a rock at it and hit it. And it was your classic UFO shape with red and green flashing lights around it. It didn't have a metallic look. It had more of a luminescent yellow nightlight type of color to it, but it had red and green lights flashing and strobing around it. And back in the 90s, we didn't have like cell phones back then, or if they did, they were mostly like probably car phones and stuff, or maybe a few people had them, but they were very expensive at that time and point. But we were using like camcorders back then. And so I kept begging my dad to go inside, please go get it. And he was like, well, the tape has already ran out. We don't have enough space. I said, well, record over it. This is important right now. Uh, Michelle Burns. Michelle? Mm-mm. I'm not even going to talk about it because Michelle, I can't talk about it because if I talk about it, then I'm gonna have to deal with it after the show. It's that deep. They, I will, Michelle. If you're not in the, I don't even, I can't talk about it. Chris, um, or Mike, no, I can't talk about it. I want to talk to y'all about it, but the only way I talk about it, I don't talk about it here. I don't talk about it here because I don't want to bring anything up. Chris Kramer said, absolutely right. When you have done this out in the field for long enough, it is very common. Attract attention, often start experiencing things at home. Hmm.
Oh, oh yeah.
And I'm not, you have to be careful when it comes to this stuff. You need to actually stay prayed up. And what people don't realize when you go out there and there's something, it's so many things I want to say. It's so many things I want to say to y'all right now, but I can't really do it and feel it's almost like, all right, I'm gonna have to start praying before I do some of these shows. I didn't know it was gonna get this deep tonight because me and Mike
Yeah,
threw
because
this together. Cause it's some stuff
you're,
that y'all need to know. Go ahead,
You're going
Mike.
to end up not being alone. You're not going to be alone tonight. Now you ain't going to be lonely.
I'm gonna leave. I think Bernard said, when I do see UFOs, I feel like they know I see them, even though it is so far away from me. They do know, Bernard. They do know. And if you were to actually talk to that UFO at that moment, when you see it, you can actually tell them, turn left, turn right, come lower. They will do it. That's just to let you see that they actually do understand. They can hear you and they are watching. It does happen. Um, Michelle said we need to know what to pray against. Where's her? Let me go back up. Yeah, what time is it? Almost 10 o'clock. I don't want to miss anything I gotta say because I know we put this together at the last minute. I had tonight's guest was originally supposed to be Scott Carpenter, and he ended up having to like reschedule, so he will be on the show next Friday. But I told Mike it's been a couple of weeks since I did my last show, so I wanted to kind of get on here and still talk about some stuff. So Mike got on here with me tonight, and some of the stuff that we talked about, like with the Girl Scout killings and everything else that we brought up, the rituals and all that kind of stuff, it all kind of ties in together somewhat because people don't realize that some of this stuff happens during the investigations and stuff. So I just felt like these things needed to be brought up for that reason, for people to
Right.
understand that you're not just dealing with ghosts and goblins or any of that kind of stuff. And Bernard, yeah, I realize that, and I know that that's not, and and I had to go through here a couple of months ago and actually do a cleansing and rebuking. And I saw, I mean, I can't even. Mike, do you remember what I told you I saw in here?
Yeah.
I got my earbuds in. I don't want to say it out loud. Can you just tell them?
I don't know if we should because if you
Can
got rid of it and we speak on it, then you give it power.
yeah. So he's right, and I don't like talking about it here.
You don't want to wake up
Um,
and see something
no, I
standing over
don't.
your bed or something.
Well, Michelle, you said we need to know what to pray against. Anything that you believe is something
Hmm.
other than now. You need to pray against all powers and all principalities and all things, whether you believe that they are good or bad, especially like with the mysterious things right now that we're discussing, Bigfoot, dog man, paranormal, aliens. Some of you probably believe that some of these things are, pleasant creatures or life from other planets or interdimensional beings. But whatever you think about them, whether you're Christian or you're Muslim or whatever, Hindu, whatever your religious beliefs or lack thereof is, still pray to a higher being. Jesus is mine because I'm a Christian, and ask that ask that it is revealed to you what you're on. And with that authority and power, they have to admit or show their true form to you. Um, so that's what you pray against. Pray against anything coming to try to deceive you, or try to come against you or attack you. And there's a lot of other things that y'all don't understand, like when you're dealing with dreams and stuff like that. Things that you deal with in the dream realm. Some stuff is not always because um, you ate something bad or anything like that. It's so much stuff. War Criminal 7 has said, Mike, I really appreciate your channel. So informative and accurate. Very rare in this field.
I appreciate that. We'll have more to talk about on the Girl Scouts. I'm sure soon.
Did you? Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's still under wraps, too, right?
Yeah, still working on it though. Still working on it.
And like y'all, I'm not going to keep Mike on here all night. Mike, did you need to go?
Yeah, probably here pretty soon. My little one's wanting to eat something.
Yeah, and I haven't had dinner either, y'all. And I got him on here at the last minute. Like I said, Scott Carpenter will be on next Friday's show. Y'all, everybody, yeah, y'all pray. Y'all pray tonight. Y'all pray over it. Pray over me. Pray over all this kind of stuff. Because sometimes, like I had already decided, I wasn't going to do any more of these. I
do
wasn't
you
going
have
to
a
do
little
any more
kid?
shows talking about this kind of stuff.
Do you have anybody else there with you?
No,
Okay.
don't tell me you see. Don't. You're not going to tell me you see anything, please, because I've people have done that before during these shows. War criminal, yes. And Michelle Burns, that's what. Okay, Michelle, I'm gonna say this without saying anything. You said that's what we. That's all. What it's all about. We need to know that's why you're doing this. I'm doing this, but I also have to maintain my sanity and my safety too, because I do come under attack. I do deal with sleep paralysis. I do have. Um, I had to clear this place like a couple months ago. I don't want to speak on it. I don't want to speak on it, but this place, I do get
Mm,
um I do deal with. They will. Okay, I'm gonna put it like this, and I'm gonna leave it alone, y'all. You can't be too safe when it comes to this stuff. You have to stay prayed up. They can touch you. Spirit deals with stuff like this. So understand. There's just certain things I can't really talk about. Psalm 91 every day. Anyway, Mike, if you need to jump off, you can jump off. I'm getting ready to shut it down anyway. I'm getting ready to shut it down. It's 10 o'clock.
all right. Well, it was good hanging out with you.
But you too, and thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna get ready to shut it down in a few minutes. I just wanted to do something tonight, Mike. I will reach out to you tomorrow, and we'll get scheduled. I'm gonna go on Mike's show next for his guest, y'all. So, Mike, thank you for
Yeah.
coming on tonight, and thank you for going over those things. And if you want, we can discuss this again with the Girl Scout killings. And I really appreciate you so much. Thank you for all your time and your support.
Not a problem. It's a pleasure being on with you anytime.
All right, thank you so much. You have a good night.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye. All right, y'all. I'm gonna get ready to shut it down in few minutes. I just wanted to kind of scroll through here real quick and make sure I don't miss anything. So, like I said, like it's some things like there's a time period when I would talk about and discuss like whatever like was like paranormal, and supernatural, and different stuff like that. But based on a few months ago, after that, I said, I got to be careful what I talk about because even to this point, even to this point, still now, I still as of probably 3 or 4 days ago, there was still some stuff happening. So I have to be careful when I talk, when I do stuff. Um, I have to be careful what I talk about because sometimes people don't realize is that when you discuss certain things, sometimes you make those things manifest. You make those things. It's almost like you call them up. And there's something like starting back right now as we speak because I'm talking about it. It just don't make no sense at all. Um, Getting goosebumps again. So I love y'all. I'm gonna tell y'all good night. I'm gonna go through here. I'm gonna go through here and pray. I may not even stay here tonight because it's not disturbed. Yep, Aussie, thank you for showing up. Watch the replay. There was a lot of information shared here tonight. Michelle Burns, thank you again. Y'all just keep prayed up. And I love you guys. And with that being said, everybody, if y'all didn't like, everybody who's still here, if you didn't hit the like button. Share with your friends. And with that being said, y'all, love you guys. Have a good night. Next Friday, 7 o'clock Central. Scott Carpenter will be here for another live show, and y'all can be down there in the live chat to ask your questions um, that you might have for him. He did a show with the Confessionals with Tony Merkel, and that was a very, very interesting episode. Y'all check that out, the Confessionals with Tony Merkel, because he shared some things on that show that I have some questions about that I definitely want to talk to him about. But y'all have a good night. I love you guys. Keep me in your thoughts and your prayers, and I will see y'all next time. For those of you who are not a member of the group and you want to join the group, go to Crypto Normal Encounters with B Moss on Facebook. And with that being said, y'all have a good night.